we are a koinonia. And so then Paul says, I pray that the koinonia of your faith. Does that mean the sharing? No, koinonia isn't a verb. That's the thing. It's not a verb, it's a noun. So Paul is saying, I pray that the fellowship of your faith. The only English word we have for that to make it into a verb is sharing. But what he's really meaning is he's really meaning this mutuality. This, you've got a faith that somehow connects with and intersects someone else's life. And their faith is intersecting yours. And that intersection is what I would call, Paul says, fellowship or community or koinonia. And so then he says, he's not saying, I pray that Philemon you would start doing this. He says, I pray that it would begin to demonstrate power in your life. To reveal to you, look at the end of this, to reveal to you the knowledge of all the good in us because of Christ. Or the way the NIV put it, that you will have a full understanding of every good thing we have in Christ. What Paul is saying is that the sharing of my faith reveals God's goodness. The sharing of my faith reveals God's goodness. When I interact with you on a level of my faith and your faith intersecting, then God's goodness gets revealed. And the two of us know more what it's like to experience the goodness of God in our midst. But beyond that, everyone around us also gets refreshed. See, Paul says that the key thing here is that Philemon has been practicing this act of sharing of his faith, and that reveals God's goodness to him, and it also makes Philemon into a refreshing sort of guy. So, I think what we need to talk about is how do we do it? How do we actually share our faith? Well, there are a couple indications here from Philemon on how to share our faith. There are a couple indications from what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to look at Jesus next week, and we're going to try to find out how Jesus shared his faith with people. And so come back next week and you get a little bit more details on some of this stuff. But I thought maybe I should share with you just a couple ideas. And I've had my share of bad experiences sharing my faith. One time when I was in high school, I was part of a program called SEMP. And SEMP stands for Student Evangelism and Missions Project. It just sounds threatening. You know, a bunch of students on an evangelism project, and everybody knows that evangelism is when we're trying to get other people to like broccoli. So, we're being trained on how to do this, and our method was to do this. We went to Santa Cruz, California, and Santa Cruz is the area where, you know, Salman Rushdie, the author of Satanic Verses, that satanic sort of Bible thing, where he lives. Santa Cruz is a very weird kind of location. There's a lot of spiritual kind of stuff going on in there. A lot of people who are hardened against Bible stuff. And so we were there because, of course, that's where you take a bunch of teenagers to tell other people about the Bible. And what we did every day is there were half of us that would stay back in this room and pray for the half of us who weren't staying in the room. Because the half of us who weren't staying in the room were going to the beaches, and we were going in pairs, a guy and a girl as a pair, so that we could talk to either guys or girls. And so we would go out and we had these little survey sheets, and we would walk up to people and we would say, hey, I've got a survey. Can I ask you these questions? They would say, sure, or no, or whatever. And then we would ask them the questions. Number one, do you think it's possible for someone to have a personal relationship with God? Number two, if someone were to ask you how to have a personal relationship with God, what would you tell them? Number three, if you wanted to know how to have a personal relationship with God, would you be interested in hearing what I have to say? And if they said yes, then we'd pull out another booklet called Knowing God Personally, ironically, and we would go through this little booklet with them and we would start talking to them about this kind of stuff. Well, it was kind of a good situation, and I'm kind of a smooth talker sometimes, and I can kind of convince people to like things that I like sometimes. And so I had generally pretty good success getting other people to read all the way through the book and to pray the little prayer at the end of the book with me. But the problem was, as soon as I did that, I would walk away, they would walk away, and I had zero knowledge of whether or not they actually believed or if they even cared about the time they spent with me. And so there was this one particular day, we're on the beach, and I'm with this other girl that I didn't know. She was from another church, and they just sort of randomly put us all together. I think it was drawing people out of a hat or something. So I was with this other girl, and we were going out to ask our questions. And I walked up to this one guy who looked like he might be an interesting guy to talk to. And I said, "Hi, sir," and that's the last thing I said. Because out of his mouth spewed a string of profanities, the likes of which I cannot even mention here in this room, nor would I ever put on the screen. So he just absolutely ripped into us and started telling me and this girl where we should go and what we should do, and how he was done putting up with all these proselytizers trying to proselyte him, all this stuff, and it was just a mess. And I was like 17, and this girl I think was 16, and we're just standing there like this. And he rattled on for like 5 minutes, and then I was like, so would you like to know how to know God personally? And he's like, all right, and then he ran off and walked away. I didn't even get him to pray the prayer with me. So that was a bad experience. And it really kind of made me feel bad about what I was doing. Was I actually making a difference in people's lives? Later on that same week, I had been wrestling with this thing. It was like a 3 or 4 day long seminar thing. And I'd been wrestling with this thing. Every day I'd been going out. Every day I'd been getting people to pray with me, and then they'd walk their direction, I'd walk my direction. And it felt hollow and felt kind of empty. And so we're at the last night, the last evening, and I just prayed. I said, God, if you want me to talk to anyone, you just make it happen. You just work it out. So we're at this event, this youth rally kind of event, and there's this kid sitting off to the side getting some punch or something. And I walked up to him and I started this conversation. And I didn't do the survey thing, but I just kind of started a conversation. I was just asking him how his life was going and how he enjoyed the night and that kind of stuff. And eventually, we got around to going through the book, and we went through the book, and we got to the end of the book, and I asked him if he wanted to pray this little prayer, and he said, yeah, I want to pray this little prayer. And I'm going through the motions. I'm like, okay, we'll go ahead and pray the prayer. So pray the prayer. And then my job was supposed to get his name and information and stuff and turn it into the people who are in charge of this whole thing so that they could make contacts and follow up on it. So I did that. I did my job and walked away thinking, great, what difference does that make? And the whole rest of the night I kind of felt down and a little bit depressed until right before the end of the evening when I was walking out. And as I was walking out, I saw that kid standing off in the corner, and he was surrounded by like 9 guys. And he was in the middle of this circle of like 9 guys. And as I walked past him, I was hearing him tell all these other guys what he had just done earlier in the evening. And he had the little booklet, and he was showing them the booklet, and he was talking to them about it, and I didn't hear the whole conversation. I didn't want to stand nearby and just eavesdrop. But there was a moment as I realized what was happening, that he had 9 guys paying attention to him of something that God had done in his heart, not something about the booklet or me, but something that God